We are now joined by Chase Briscoe, or should I say Cal Naughton Jr. Chase, oh my gosh, y'all have gone all out for this promotion. I freaking love it, dude. How you doing?
Yeah, I've been good. I hope you've been good too. It's been a lot of fun, doing all the Talladega Nights stuff. I'm a big fan of the movie personally, so I've known about this for a couple months now, and been hard to honestly keep it all in. But it's been a lot of fun to film all the content that we have, and then truthfully see the fan response. I knew that the fans were going to be into it, but I didn't think it was going to blow up as much as it did. So yeah, I'm super excited for this weekend, just kind of see how much like the actual ad track experience is.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that movie, I mean, it came out like 15, 17, 18 years ago now, but I feel like it still has a hold on like mainstream culture. Like it's still very much
All the time still.
yeah, it's a staple on like, Freeform or whatever channels there are these days.
All the time.
Yeah. That's awesome. I have to ask, how did you keep a straight face when Ryan Preece was doing like this whole thing in the video? Because I lost it.
Yeah. It I was chuckling the first couple times. He practiced a few times and I got kind of my laughs out early. But yeah, he nailed it. He had perfect form on that part. It was pretty impressive, honestly, how good he was at. I don't know if he cooks or something in real life, but he definitely had it. He had it nailed in for sure.
I just love it when, folks who are obviously not actors like commit to an acting role. And so, yeah, y'all were great. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
So are we going to get like, are there any extra special team orders this weekend to like stick together just so you guys can at least get that photo, or TV gets the second on TV to like mention you two, shaking and baking?
Yeah, no specific team orders, but it is funny. Our cars obviously have been extremely fast at the super speedways. So I think at Daytona at one point we were running first, second, third, and fifth. So we were on the pole. I think Eric qualified third. So there's a real possibility that we're all up front. And I was joking with Ryan earlier today. I was like, man, there's a real possibility like me and you both qualify on the front row together. and like
Hey.
what a story that would be. So yeah, it'd be pretty cool to see Ricky Bobby and Cal Naughton Jr. lead the field of green in an actual cup race at Talladega.
Yeah, it's just awesome. Y'all got the paint schemes, the sponsors, everyone's on board. It's pretty cool to see something like that fully come together. Well, Chase, I do want to talk a little bit of I guess, real racing. We're talking about real racing, but stuff that's already happened, I suppose. Third year in the Cup Series. I guess I first want to just ask you, where do you feel you've improved or evolved the most as a race car driver these first few years?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, coming into the Cup Series, everybody says you're never ready, and that's the truth. That leap from the truck garage and the Xfinity garage, there's not a huge difference when you go over to the Xfinity side, but that leap from the Xfinity garage to the Cup garage, it's like swimming in the 3-foot pool to jumping into the ocean. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Every single person is really, really good. You think every single driver in the field has won at every single level they've ever been in. They really are the best. And just from a competition side, I've never had to run so hard to literally run 22nd, for example. Just it's so tense the whole time. And, you're running 500-mile races, 400-mile races. I mean, even the Coke 600, you run 600 miles of qualifying laps. I mean, there's no really give and take anymore like there used to be. You don't have to kind of nurse your car to the end. You just literally run as hard as you can every single lap because track position is so important. So, all those things were a lot to learn. And even just the racecraft, how good guys are at where they put their car and taking your airway and things like that were just things that, in the Xfinity series, I was just really naive to, truthfully. When those guys would come and race, you just didn't learn all the tricks because you're only racing one guy, and then you all of a sudden start racing 35 of them, and they're all just incredible race car drivers. So I think for me, the biggest thing I learned is just, you're not always going to have a race winning car, especially on the Cup side. The Xfinity side, you could take a 10th place car and sometimes you could honestly win with it or run second or third with it if you did everything right. Where on the Cup side, it just takes time to realize that, hey, if you have a 10th place car that day, just try to truthfully run eighth with it. And if you can run eighth, that's a really good day just because you're not going to take a 10th place car and win in the Cup Series. And that's something that, especially I would say at the first half of last season, I really struggled with. There's a couple of races where I crashed out where I was just pushing too hard. And that's something I feel like I've tried to do a lot better at, is just taking kind of what it'll give me. And, truthfully, last year, our playoff run, I felt like was a lot of that. Like if we had a 12th place car, I would try to run 10th with it. If we had a 15th place car that day, just try to run 13th with it instead of crashing out or running 25th or whatever it is. And I feel like the results have came a lot easier. At least through last year's playoffs. This year, the results haven't came easy at all. So it's been a struggle for sure. But yeah, just how much it goes into the Cup Series and getting those results, I think is the biggest thing I've learned in these first 3 years. And just having mistakes, like I said, the Xfinity side, you can speed on pit road, things like that, and you're going to drive right back through the field. But in the Cup Series, unless you're one or two guys on that given weekend, you're normally not going to be able to make a mistake.
You did mention this season. It has been, I know, a challenge. You are fresh off a top 10 at Texas, so that was great to see. So how would you grade or judge your team's overall performance this year?
Yeah, it's been weird. I've never in my career had a season where, you either run top 5, top 10 battling for the win or you 30th or worse. Like we have been nowhere in between. Like we don't have those 15th place days. It seems like we literally are in the top 10 or we're 31st. So that's been a challenge. But for us, when we've been good, I feel like we've been really good. But when we've been bad, we've been really bad. So I'm just trying to kind of figure out the highs and the lows and try to just be more consistent week in and week out. And for us, we started the season, we had not so great runs, but then we got on a streak there 3 weeks in a row where we ran the top 5 and we're leading a lot of laps. And then we went like 4 months with not even a top 10. So, for us, a couple months ago, we changed crew chiefs, and that was a huge, thing to do in the middle of the season. My new crew chief, Richard Boswell, essentially was coming in, 50 something weeks behind what all these other, next gen crew chiefs have been able to learn and know about the car. And I feel like just now, these last 3 weeks, we've finally been having speed. We've been way faster, unloading in practice. We haven't been able to qualify, but our racing and the actual race itself, our car's been really good. This past weekend, I felt like we were a top 3 car and we got damaged with, the second to last restart and kind of killed our day and we ran 10th. So, for us to be disappointed with a 10th place with how our season's gone, I think shows the level of how much we've been improving. We just haven't been able to show our improvement because we haven't been able to execute, like I was saying earlier. So once we put all the pieces together, I feel like we're going to be in a really good place. Looking back on it, I'm glad we kind of made the switch when we did, just because I think it's going to give us a great opportunity now going into next season to kind of hopefully start the season where we need to be. We're not going to be starting behind and going through this kind of 2-3 month building process because we got it out of the way this year.
That's a great point. And, in this case, you and Richard Boswell, you guys have had success together back in the Xfinity series. Does that familiarity, make that building process easier between you two?
I think yes and no. I think we both are confident in each other. We both know what we're capable of. But at the same time, it is hard because I feel like we both expected to win right off the bat, just because in the Xfinity series, we were able to have so much success. And, that's the one thing I think that was hard for Richard, truthfully, was just, I kind of had to drill into his head those first 4 or 5 weeks of how hard Cup racing is. He didn't understand, well, why were we running 10th this run? And then we go to the back and we can't get back up there. And I'm like, look, that's just how hard Cup racing is. And I think he's understood that finally now, but I think it's good and bad, for us to come together, just because we do hold ourselves to such a high standard. That's the one thing I think is hard when it is the Cup Series and just how the results are going to come. You're going to have really good weeks, you're going to have really bad weeks, and just trying to figure out how to manage those. And, Richard is extremely competitive. So trying to, keep him kind of calm down on those bad weeks, but then also appreciate the good weeks has been kind of the biggest, I feel like, challenge for us. But from a car standpoint, he's done an incredible job. I just told him this past weekend, that's the closest car I've ever had in this next gen era to what we used to have in an Xfinity car as far as how it drove. And I felt like our results showed that. So I feel like we're in a really good spot right now. And I really do feel like we're going to be running up front a lot more these last 6-7 weeks. And like I said, hopefully next year we can really start off strong.
That's great. And we hear about, with the next gen, teams are put in a much tighter box as to what they can do, what can they can really affect on the cars. So hasn't just been the 14, but all of Stewart-Haas racing people, I think, have noticed have not run as well this year as they have in years past. So what overall, or where does Stewart-Haas need to improve specifically? Is it all just simulator stuff, you think, or is there anything else that you guys can do to find consistent speed again?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit everywhere, right? Like it's not just all going to come in one area.
Hmm.
There's all kinds of different areas where you can find a little bit. And if you just find a little bit in everywhere, well, then it all adds up. And, I think at the beginning of the year, truthfully, we were quick to point the finger and talk about, how Ford's just struggle in general. But, truthfully, RFK, front row, they figured it out. So, once we quit pointing the finger and was like, hey, we just need to get to work, I feel like our results have improved a lot over the last month or two. And, I think the biggest thing for us is just, like you were saying, trying to become more consistent. We go some weeks and all four of us are extremely fast. That like the first race at Martinsville this year, we were all four like unbelievable. And then we go
Yeah.
to a mile and a half and only one of us is good. And that's the one thing I think for us as a company is, we always have like that 1.5 car or one or two cars that run up front, but then the other two are in the back, and just trying to become more consistent across kind of all of playing fields. And that's one thing I think these last 2 or 3 weeks, at least like inside the company, we feel like all four cars have been way faster and way closer to each other. And I feel like that just comes from us as an organization being more open between each other and really understanding like, hey, we are struggling right now. And, the whole thing in the past where kind of all four cars kind of worked independently, like that just doesn't work anymore in the next gen era with how everything is so tight, like you were saying, of a box that you're in. So I feel like the more we've opened up as a company to each other and, just tried to figure out, hey, look, like we're not in the playoffs. We were obviously behind. We need to all four work together and just try to go to the racetrack and learn as much as we can. I feel like that's when we've really seen a difference. And like I said, this past weekend, I thought, really all four of our cars were pretty fast for a mile and a half standpoint. So hopefully we can just continue to do that these next 6-7 weeks.
Has there been, do you think there's any extra like pressure on yourself, even though you are, I guess, the youngest driver on the team and still probably will be
Yeah.
potentially going into next year? Is there any pressure to take on like a greater leadership role now that you got Kevin Harvick stepping away and a new driver taking his place?
Yeah, I think for sure, I'm the youngest by age, but I'm the oldest when it comes to how long I've been here.
Yeah.
I've been with the company since 2018. I'll be in the Cup side since 2021. So, it's weird, truthfully, to think about. For me, I came into a really good spot where, I was learning under Kevin Harvick, who's obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer, literally has the answer to every question you could ever ask. And then also you have Eric Almirola, who's been there for 15 years in the Cup Series, and same thing. I bounced a ton of stuff off of him. And, I've had these two guys that were always like I said, they had the answer to every question I could ever ask. Then I also always had, Cole Custer, who was similar in age with me, both very low experience that we could bounce things off of. And it's going to be weird now not having that guy I can call and go to. And I think, these last 2-3 years, I've seen how Kevin has obviously led the company and taken charge and kind of that leadership role. And that's something that, I don't think you like raise your hand and say, hey, I'm going to be the leader. I think it comes down to the results on the racetrack. And, there's a reason that Kevin's been the leader of this place, and it's because he's ran the best every single week. And that's kind of what I'm striving to be, is I want to be that lead car. When people think of Stewart-Haas racing, they think of the 14 car and how they're always kind of the class of the field. So I think we're fully capable of doing that. We did that, I would say 50% of the season last year. I felt like it was always me or Kevin kind of leading the ship in a sense. So now with Kevin gone, it obviously is going to take me stepping up and performing at a way higher level. But that's something I'm excited for and ready for the challenge. Just a matter of trying to execute that.